Good evening. Welcome back to my channel. If you're a new viewer, welcome to my channel. I am Kyle. Today we'll be talking gun safety and loading and firing black powder firearms, as well as some modern firearms. So, here are your timestamps. Let's get to it. Before we continue on with the video, remember your safety rules. 1. Always treat the weapon as if it's loaded. 2. Check and confirm that the firearm is in fact loaded or unloaded. 3. Keep the weapon pointed in a safe direction at all times. 4. Identify the target and anything surrounding it. 5. Do not discharge the weapon at anything you do not intend on destroying. With that out of the way, let's continue. Okay, so these are the weapons I have lined up for you. We have our miniature Howitzer, our Colt snub nose, a Remington, a Kentucky pistol percussion, a Trapper pistol flintlock, Colt 1911, and an M1A. So let's start off with our Howitzer. So first things first, check and make sure it's empty. It is. This miniature Howitzer is calibered in 50 caliber or .490. Now there is actually a manual of arms on how to do this. Brandon F did a video on it on his channel, and I vaguely remember it. So if I remember correctly, let's say it's already fired. First thing you're gonna do is you're gonna worm it. What worming does will remove any of the embers or burning canvas. If it was an actual size can, it would be canvas. So this will remove any burning paper. There is none. You would swab it. And the idea of the swab is it doesn't need to be soaking wet. It just needs to be slightly moist. And what that does, if there are any embers that the worm happens to miss, they have been put out. This fires 20 grains of cannon powder or 2F powder. And then what you do there, then you would slide it in through the bore. Slide into through the bore. Take your thumb and a pick. Puncture the charge. Put your thumb over it, just in case if there's anything hot in the air or if a sparks are flying around, it doesn't accidentally ignite. Then you take your ball, put it in, ram it home. Okay, and then it says when you use these, you should use a 15-second fuse, which depending on what kind of fuse you get, 15 seconds is 3 inches. I use 5 seconds, so 1-inch fuses. And then once I have my fuse set, I remove my hand, light the fuse, and it goes off. Alright, so that's how you fire the Howitzer. Let's move on to one of my revolvers. Here in front of me I have a Colt stub nose, which it will be when I put it together. We're going to start with the black powder version. So there's going to be this cylinder here. Little tap. Alright, so there are quite a few ways you can load this. You can do it with pre-mades, which I have one right here. This is a 36 caliber or 375. No, 357 diameter ball. I'll correct myself in the notes, I'm sure. What you're going to do is you're going to take the hammer, put it in half cock, which is one click, like that. This allows the cylinder to freely rotate. You're going to put it into an empty cylinder. You're going to rotate it slightly under, and because there's no press on this version, you're going to take your ramrod, then you're going to tap it in, but we're not going to do that because I don't plan on shooting this today. Now we're just going to take it out. That's one method. Another method is still in half cock. Measure out 20 grains of powder using a powder gauge. Use 3F pistol powder. And then you just pour it into a cylinder. And then it's the same thing after that. You take your ball, put it in that same cylinder, rotate it until it lines up. Take your ramrod and tap it in. And once you have it tapped in, keeping it in the half-cock position, you'd hold it in front of you. You take a number 10 or number 11 cap, depending on what is assigned to the revolver. Then you'd push it in, rotate, grab another cap, push that on, rotate it again, push another cap, and then you'd go. Now let's go to my conversion cylinder, which is also empty. Comes in two pieces. This shoots 38 special. I'm also going to show you something, how you know your cylinder is loaded versus when you don't. So let's bring you in. So as you can see, the firing pins here are flat. So when you take it off, the cartridges will either been already shot or it's an empty cylinder. Unfortunately, I don't have any dummy round 38s, so unfortunately I am going to have to use live ammunition. And if you watch, those two that I just loaded, their firing pins will pop up. See? Now, unfortunately, the conversion, unlike the black powder cylinder, doesn't have any half notches, so you can't rest it on an empty cylinder. Well, not an empty cylinder, between cylinders. So if you want to safely carry this, leave one cylinder empty. Yeah, now you can see it better. Where these have these little in-between cylinder notches, this one doesn't have it, which means when you go to set the hammer, which as you can see here, has a bottom groove that notch sets into, which will keep it from rotating. Here, I'll show you real quick. I don't need to put it back together. In between. This one, however, because it does not, see, it slid right into a cylinder. So if that was loaded, so if you are going to carry a conversion cylinder, either keep it in a separate pocket out of the revolver or put it on an empty chamber, because now that's locked in a chamber, it doesn't want to move. Alright, let's move on to my 44 Remington. Alright, so my 44 Remington, or Remington 44, as you can see, is empty and unloaded. Similar to my Colt, it's black powder, but it is not converted, but the loading procedures are more or less the same. You're going to put it in half cock, so first click. Allows the cylinder to freely rotate. Now you can either do it straight from the powder flask, if the nozzle is the right grainage. This is a 30 grain nozzle, which means I can just push this little side button, put my finger over the top, pour powder, which I didn't, as you can see. So I would just push the button, pour powder, and then once I have my powder, tilt it into a cylinder, take a 44 caliber ball, or a 452 if I remember correctly, put it in, and because the barrel is the right length, it has a built-in press, and I just drop the press, load, and go. This one is not converted because, to my understanding, brass cannot handle the pressures from a converted cylinder, same way a hardened or blue can. Hardened steel or blue steel can. So there's a chance that if I did convert this, that the pressure would cause my firearm to destroy itself. But also similar to the Colt, you can also do pre-made cartridges, which is the same thing, half cock, put it in, rotate, press. They suggest that you grease the rounds on top. You can either use chapstick, Vaseline, Crisco, or you can order boar butter. And what that does, not only does it help with cleaning it and reducing the fouling and extra powder inside, it makes it easier to rotate because as a result, it's not as dirty because it's dragging most of it out with it. It will also help prevent chain fires. A chain fire, if those who do not know, is where the spark from the barrel, from the cylinder going off, falls into the next chamber, setting that one off, which back in the day was pretty common. All right. So seeing how that my 44 and my 36 function the same way, let's go into my percussion Kentucky pistol. Oh, I forgot. If you do convert your pistols, make sure you have a stick or a ramrod, because when you remove the cap from the conversion cylinder, they just don't fall out. Because they explode, the casing expands and will now fit the diameter of the cylinder it's in. So you need a stick to push it out. All right, now let's go into my single shot Kentucky pistol. Okay, right here we have a 50 caliber Kentucky pistol percussion cap. So first thing, make sure it's empty. It is. All right, so first thing you want to do is you want to have the muzzle pointing up, and you either do this similar to the 44. You can either add straight from the barrel, well, straight from the powder flask, again 30 grains for 50. Or you can do pre-made cartridges where you would have to bust open the back, pour it, then push it in. Do not add wadding, however. If you do not choose that route, however, and you choose to go the powder gauge or powder flask method, you want to push the button, pour, add it to the barrel. You're going to take about a 1-inch diameter, 0.015 patch, put it over the muzzle. Then you're going to take the bowl, place it on top, and then you're going to ram it home. I suggest you use a bowl starter because sometimes they're not easy going in. And the whole point of that is because the .49 is actually an undersized shot. Meaning if you put the bowl in, there's a good chance that when you tilt it like this, the bowl can roll out. I'm not saying it has happened, but I'm just saying it is a possibility because I've had that happen to me. So that point, I mean, if you do your math, 0.49 plus 0.015 is 0.505, which means it's slightly oversized by 0.005, which will help keep it in place. So once you have it loaded, you're going to put your hammer here. Actually, it's called a cock, technically. Take your thumb and forefinger, or however you do it. Thumb on behind, forefinger up and back. Pull it to the half cock position, one click. Take your number 10 or 11 caps, wherever it's assigned, put that on, and then pull it all the way back using your thumb, and now you're ready to go. Right. And like I said, you can do the pre-made method, which don't add a wad because now it's too big, and then it can cause problems for you later. Or you can do the powder gauge or flask method, which is, again, 30 grains, 3F powder. pour that down the bore, put a patch over it, take a ball, put that over it, get it started, and then just take your ramrod out and send it home. Okay, so now that I got this one, let's go into my flintlock trapper pistol. Alright, so here's my flintlock trapper pistol. First things first, it is empty. Now we're loading this one because it is flintlock. There is an extra step. You're going to take your thumb and forefinger, grab the cock, put it in the half cock position, like that. And now there's two ways you can prime this. Well, three, depending how you want to look at it. If you have a pre-made cartridge, you're going to bust the back of it. You're going to add powder into the pan. You're going to close the frizzen. You're going to tilt the barrel up. And then pour the rest of it into the barrel. Push it down. Ram it home. And you're going to pull the cock the rest of the way back. And now you're ready to go. That's one way. Another way is, similar to the Kentucky pistol, you're going to take your powder, you're going to pour it, add it to the muzzle, put your patch over it, put the ball over that, send it home. Again, you're going to put this in the half cock position. You're going to use a different powder flask filled with 4F powder, which is priming powder, and you just want one little push. And then you want it either about center of the pan or close to one of the edges. And then again, you're going to close it, bring the cock the rest of the way back, and then you're good to go. The third way, which is the way I have done, is a bit of both the pre-made route and the priming pan route. Because I use a pre-made cartridge, which means I have the full 30 grains, I just add that all into the barrel, send it home, put my cock in half cock, take my priming powder, put one plunge of that, and then I was off. Right. So depending what state you live in, black powder guns are actually classified as antiques and therefore available for open carry. In the state of California, I can open carry my Kentucky pistol, my trapper pistol, my Remington 44, my 36 Colt, my brown Bess if I wanted to, my black powder shotgun if I wanted to. But the catch is, I can only carry them if there's no powder in the pan or if there's no cap on the nipple making the weapon, functional. Or if I have one of my cylinders, say, completely loaded and there's caps on the nipples and set to go, I can carry my revolver as long as the cylinder is not inside it and inside of a different compartment. But I can also carry my cylinder loaded without caps on the nipples as long as I have the caps in a different pocket. So which means I can open carry black powder in California. But now that we have, and why don't I grab any of my rifles? Well, because a flintlock and a percussion lock work the same no matter what you put them on. You put them on a rifle, it'll still work the same. You'll still have to muzzle load. You'll still have to put them in half cock to either prime the pan or put the cap on, and then close the frizzen, obviously on a flintlock, and then pull the cock the rest of the way back to make them function. So, now that we got my muzzle loaders out of the way, let's go into something a little more modern. Let's start with my 1911. Alright, right here is my 1911. No magazine in, the magazine, no cartridge in the muzzle, barrel. So it is empty. I do fortunately have dummy rounds, and I'm going to come in closer so you can see how I load them. So how I like to load them, I've seen them in different ways. I've seen people just take, these are dummy rounds by the way, just take the back of the dummy round, push in and go, and then do the same thing for the entire magazine. I, however, don't particularly care for that method. What I like to do is I like to take the cartridge, push down with my thumb, and then bring it in. And then just do the same thing with the remainder. And there we go. We have one magazine, magazine, 5 rounds, 45 dummy rounds. All right, so the 1911 is a single action single action pistol. Here are my dummy rounds. Breech facing towards you. All right, now I'm just gonna hit the slide lock. The 1911 is actually a very safe gun in my opinion because I'm gonna hold this right here, and then it's not going off. I'm gonna engage the safety here, and then press the beaver tail. Again, still not going off. Now let's take the safety off. It's only by pressing the beaver tail in and the trigger does it fire. Now, what I like about hammered pistols is that I can tell when they're, not safe. Let's say if I drop the magazine and I didn't check the breech. I don't know there's a live round in there, but do you? Yeah, there it is. And I decided for whatever reason I was going to be negligent, pull the hammer back, and then you see the problem? So even though it's a very safe gun, simple, ignoring common practices makes it a very dangerous gun because, again, there's a round in there, which means every time if that strikes it, it's going to go off. So now it's empty. So similar to my revolvers, again, it's a single action. And then just let the hammer come forward. And I know when it's like this, it's been fired. It's clearly not racked back. My safety isn't on. So even if I press the beaver tail and pull the trigger, it's not going to go off because it's single action. Double action is where you can squeeze the trigger, which will, I'm going to try to imitate it as best as I can. When you squeeze the trigger, you'll see the hammer start to go back until it finally goes forward. Best example of these are the toy cap guns that you get as a child. Those are a good example of double trigger, though they're not because even those only work one way. Double trigger is where I can pull the hammer back and then fire it, which is, I guess, recommended for more accurate fire. Or you can just pull the trigger and go, which is common with things like Beretta. A Glock, I think, is also similar to a single action revolver. But the problem is because you can't see the hammer on a Glock because it's a striker fire pistol. You don't know if it's been racked and ready to go. And the only way to find out is, again, common safety practices. Take the slide, expose the breech. But unlike a hammered pistol, once I pull the trigger on a striker fire, it's going to go. Where this I can set to safe. Now let's go to my M1A. So right here we have my M110, which is similar to a M14. Same thing. No magazine in the magazine well. No bullet in the chamber. Alright, so what my fires is it's a relatively new round. I think it was introduced in 2007. Is the 6.5 Creedmoor. It's a double stack mag. So I'll come to you again. Double stack mag. So you can push it in and slide it back like you do a single stack, but it's much more efficient. Let me get this one out. just to line up the back as best as you can and push down. And the same thing, line up as best as you can and push down. However, if you do have an accident where it's a little more forward, just push it back and you're fine. So let's go get the rifle. So as you can see, magazine well is still empty. It's a rock mag, so that means you're going to put it at an angle, and then you're going to rock it until it clicks. Oh, hey, in fact, nope, not even going to waste my time. There's a small catch in there that if it catches just right, clicks. You know, I wonder if I can turn my light on and have you guys see that. So give me a sec. Okay, there's a small catch on the inside, which you can see right here. There's a small hole there. You want that to catch on it. There you go. Now you're locked and loaded. Then you just pull the slide back. Now you're chambered. I've noticed a lot of people seem to struggle with the safety on these, which I've seen them, when they're like that, stick their entire finger in, which I think is very unsafe, because you're one accidental jerk from pulling the trigger after you take the safety off. I think it's better, if you have to, just use your thumb, push it out. As you can see, I clear the trigger. Let me get the sling out of the way. I completely clear the trigger. Or you can just use the tip of your finger and do the same thing. See, that way there's no accidentally jerking the trigger. This rifle, however, does highlight my point. As you can see, there's no exposed hammer or firing mechanism. It is a rotating bolt. So if I take the mag out, there's one bonus, that this safety won't engage if the bolt's not racked. But because I didn't clear it, if I don't check with my safety, now it accidentally goes off. But this also highlights the point I was making. Trigger still goes, but because the bolt's not racked, the safety doesn't. And I'm really pushing on it. So once it's racked, the safety goes. So, what was the point of this video? Well, I'm clearly not an expert in firearms, which that was already given. It was to show you that even though I am not an expert in these things, and yes, my terminology is wrong, and probably my presentation too, that I still know how to use and operate what's in front of me. There are a lot of people okay, I'm not gonna say a lot of people, but one of my great uncles, this was before I was born, he accidentally shot himself cleaning his pistol because he didn't check the slide. I work with a guy who accidentally shot himself. He survived. It's just he shot himself in the foot. But again, he didn't check his firearm. It's one of those things, you need to be very familiar with your firearm and how it works. That way you know that, okay, there's a chance it could go off, or if it's loaded, like I showed with my M1A, even though there was no magazine in it, the fact that I can engage my safety means, oh, it's racked, there might be something in there. Or with my 1911, which was the greatest example, because I can engage the safety when the hammer's back, or I can engage the beaver tail safety in the trigger when the hammer's back, or when it's not. So my 1911, of all these guns here, because if there's no powder in my prison pan, even if it's loaded, it's not going to go off. If there's no cap on my nipple on my Kentucky rifle, even if I pull all the way back, squeeze the trigger, it's not going to go off. Same thing with my revolvers. If there's no caps on the nipples, but they're loaded, and I squeeze the trigger, they're not going to go off. However, with my conversion cylinder, if I don't pay attention to my firing pins, it might go off and kill me. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay safe. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the like button. If you have any suggestions or criticisms, leave a comment. And if you want to stay tuned for my next project, don't forget to click that subscribe icon and ring that bell. So, until our next project, have a beautiful day.